Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the SKNIS Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.
I'm Ian Richards. Welcome to InFocus, a weekly program where we zoom in on what's happening within and throughout the government, your government. The Ministry of Sustainable Development and Climate Action is leading the charge to transform St. Kitts and Nevis into a sustainable developing state. With June 5 being observed globally as World Environment Day, we'll take stock of how St. Kitts and Nevis is tackling pollution, plastic pollution that is, conserving biodiversity, and living up to other international commitments, while carefully balancing the need for livelihoods within St. Kitts and Nevis. June Hughes, Director of Environment, and Vicia Woods, Environment Officers, are our special guests today. Stay with us as we delve into your government, your business. Welcome back to InFocus, and we say welcome to Miss June Hughes and to Miss Vicia Woods. Ladies, welcome to the program.
Welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So, as mentioned earlier, as we would have seen that, Miss Hughes, you're the Director of Department of Environment, and Miss Woods, you're an Environment Officer. Let's talk a bit about what it entails. Miss Woods, we'll start with you. What does your role as Director entail?
I am the head of the department, and I oversee the work of the department and help to craft environmental policy. That's it in a nutshell.
Ms. Woods?
As you mentioned, I'm the environmental officer, and I engage in outreach activities, the public, stakeholder consultations, and as it relates to regional and international projects, we are responsible for the implementation of these projects.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk to us about the role of the Department of Environment?
Well, the Department of Environment was created in April of 1996, so we've been around for a while. We are responsible for the conservation, preservation, and protection of the natural environment. We also are responsible for the implementation of the environmental conventions in the Federation.
Mm-hmm. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, June 5th is World Environment Day. What can you tell us about that observance?
Well, World Environment Day was created in 1973 by the United Nations. It was created to encourage worldwide awareness and action to protect our environment. As you said, it is celebrated on the 5th of June, and it brings a global spotlight on pressing environmental issues, such as the theme for this year, which is solutions to plastic pollution. Now, if you've been following environment and World Environment Day, in 2018, the theme for that year was Beat Plastic Pollution. That was the first time the global environment focused on plastics and the damage that plastics was doing to the environment. So 6 years on, they've come back again with solutions to plastic pollution.
Ms. Woods, anything you care to add about the day?
Sure. As Ms. Hughes mentioned, the whole idea behind the World Environment Day, it is essentially a global platform for inspiring change, positive change towards how we as human beings interact with the environment. And this is important because how we interact with the environment, it results to how our biodiversity is either properly managed or how is this destroyed.
And it's important that, as we mentioned, Ms. Hughes, plastic pollution is back again 6 years later.
6 years later.
Talk to us about the importance of that theme.
To us, well, as you can observe around, you could see that we are challenged with the amount of plastic that we have in our environment. Now, plastics are not, most of them are a one-use product, single use, and so then we have to dispose of it. So we dispose of it, but it does not last. It lasts for a very long time in the environment, so it doesn't biodegrade. It takes hundreds of years to biodegrade. And most of the times, because of the effect of sunlight, it will degrade into microplastics, which are even more harmful to the environment, because they'll enter into our waterways and then into our oceans. Fish consume these microplastics and they end up in our food chain, and they are harmful to the body. So the UN is encouraging us to come up with solutions to dealing with this overwhelming amount of plastic in the environment. You have to remember that plastics were created, they are lightweight, they are inert in a sense, and they serve a lot of solutions to what we do in our daily lives.
And they're cheap to manufacture.
And they're cheap, I forgot that one, and they're cheap to manufacture. So they've become a burden actually. And if you've heard of the great Pacific, there's a whole area in the Pacific where plastics end up. And it's real, and it's harming the marine environment. It's also harming the terrestrial environment as well. So we have to figure out something.
Ms. Hughes, Ms. Woods, anything that you'd like to add to that?
Sure. So the theme, solutions to plastics pollutions, we at the department, we've been engaging with the public, both public and the private sector, in relation to the plastic use in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And this is why we have moved forward to submit to Cabinet a ban on single-use plastics. So over the past 2 years, we've been holding consultations with the public, and in anticipation that the government would approve this ban on single-use plastic. So this is just one of the way that we think would be, it's one way, but we think it will be an effective way, the most effective way that we can help reduce the amount of plastics in our environment and the amount of plastics that we use on an individual basis, on an individual daily basis.
And of course, we definitely will have to come back to some of the bans that we were talking about in terms of single-use plastic a bit later on. But let's stick to World Environment Day in terms of what the department is doing now in terms of the activities. Adia, tell us what the activities are in the first place. So,
there are so many things that we can do that the department has not constrained itself to one day. So we celebrate June as Environment Month.
The entire month of June?
The entire month of June. So we are starting on the 4th of June with a church service. We are going to join the congregants of the St. Peter's Anglican Church in their church service and ask God's blessing upon our month of activities. And then we will be on the 5th of June providing a message to the general public on how to on our theme and other themes about World Environment Day and beating plastic pollution. And then on the 6th of June, we will be having an environment commitment cocktail at Palms Court. And then the week of, we will be partnering with the St. Kitts Music Festival for Music Festival to promote our theme, encourage the use. The vendors at the music festival have agreed to use non-plastic, reusable items when they are given out to when they're selling to the general public. We also have other activities. We have a staff development day. We have an extreme hike using the old military trail. And then we will be doing various radio programs promoting the theme and other environmental activities, every other environmental stuff that the department will be doing.
Let's talk a bit about that music festival initiative that you mentioned in terms of the partnering there. How important is that? Because of course we know that there are a lot of persons that come into country, and some of those, especially from the more developed countries, the United States, United Kingdom, they'll be more accustomed to being a bit more environmentally conscious. So talk to us about the importance of linking with the St. Kitts Music Festival in that regard.
Well, the St. Kitts Music Festival is one of the big events for the year that happens on the calendar for St. Kitts and Nevis. And it's an opportunity where we have thousands of people gathered in one space to promote what we plan to do in terms of dealing with our plastics, and also demonstrating how you can do it by having the vendors use reusable items and not the single-use items, so cutting down on the amount of plastic that will be going into the environment. It's an opportunity to, it's not going to be a first look because we've been speaking about this for a number of years, so but ramp up our discussion on how we need to look at the impacts that single-use plastics is having on the Federation and what we can do to address the impacts.
Ms. Woods, maybe you can comment on this if you have some information, but was it a difficult sell to get the vendors to move away from having the plastic cups or the styrofoam containers, because we appreciate that it's more expensive to have the cardboard box alternatives?
Well, when we did our consultations about 3 years ago, that was a major concern, that the items are more expensive, significantly more expensive, and along with the duty they attract. But however, some of the suppliers recognize that this is a problem, that the plastics are a problem and they need a solution. So what the comments and the feedback that we got from them were maybe that there could be some kind of incentive that the government can give in order to move towards these alternative to plastics. So there was a bit of I wouldn't say hesitancy, but you know, the persons were concerned, but they recognize that yes, this is something that needs to be done, because I mean, St. Kitts and Nevis is probably one of the last countries to still have these single-use plastics in circulation. And
you're speaking about within the region or within the world?
Within the region.
And OECS or CARICOM?
Both.
Okay.
Both. But I would also like to add one of our key activities for the Environment Month is something that we thought would be very impactful, which would be the No Plastic Bag Mondays. And we've reached out to several supermarkets across the island to ask them to join this venture with us. So what we propose is that on Mondays in the month of June, which would be the first Monday would be the 5th of June, which happens to be World Environment Day, we've asked the supermarkets to not give plastic bags, shopping bags, to their customers. And this is a suggestion. We are pleading to the general public this is just a step in the direction to where we are heading, because sooner or later we won't be giving plastic bags, but we don't want to rip the band-aid off immediately. So we are going to say on Mondays in the month of June, there'll be no shopping bags given, plastic shopping bags given. So we ask the general public to walk with your reusable bags or use some kind of other means of taking your products away from the supermarkets. And we do recognize that this would be a challenge at first. Of course, we do understand that. So if you absolutely must take a shopping bags, because what we took into consideration is those persons who take public transportation and may go shopping in the afternoon and on their way from work to home. So, but we're just asking you to just make an extra effort. Even if you don't do it on the first Monday, just bear in mind that the other Mondays in the month, this would be done. So just try your best to move towards this this practice and support this activity in working with your reusable bags, so that we can reduce the amount of plastics that are in the environment. And then hopefully this would be something that becomes a part of us and a part of the culture, because we know culture, habits and behavior is the hardest to change. So this is an activity that we're really looking forward to, and that we think that would be very impactful.
And Ms. Richards, incidentally, walking with your own bag to shop was something that we used to do traditionally. And we moved away from it when the convenient plastic bag came along. So we're just asking our people to go back to what we were accustomed to, walking with your cloth bag to the supermarket. And there's so many bags out there actually that you could reuse and just walk with them. They'll pack your groceries in. And supermarkets are now accustomed to persons giving them their bags and to put their shopping in. And we're asking you to be mindful of that. And on the Mondays, first Mondays, every Monday in June, to walk with your bag to the supermarket and use them.
So if a person goes to the supermarket and they don't have a reusable bag, because you said that the supermarkets have agreed that they won't be giving out plastic bags, what happens?
Well, although they have agreed, there was some concerns of the persons, being, I don't want to say combative, but there are some concerns about the persons wanting and demanding a plastic bag. And they have decided that if a case like that comes about, then they will give the plastic bag. Or some of the supermarkets would say they would only give a plastic bag if the persons ask for a plastic bag. But each supermarket, although they agreed, they still have to do what's best for their business. They have also agreed to post this event on their social media, which we are very grateful for, because it shows that the supermarkets are willing to move towards the right direction in reducing the amount of plastics. So I guess we just have to be guided by the supermarkets in terms of what their decision would be. So.
And as a little personal experience to share, because there have been occasions when I have tried to use a reusable plastic bag, and I will go to the supermarket with someone, and typically it's a male to assist as well too. And some of the times, some of the feedback I would get is like, "Oh, you're a man, why are you walking with a reusable plastic bag?" So there's even gender stereotypes attached to it. That makes it much more difficult to break that culture. That makes it a lot more difficult to break that culture.
But slowly but surely we are adopting the new culture. Persons are walking, whether it's persons who are accustomed to doing it externally, and they come here and they continue the practice, and then the supermarkets are offering, some of the supermarkets offer reusable bags for sale. So persons who are aware of what is coming down the road have been using reusable bags. So I think more and more we will get accustomed to, it's just practice. And they say it takes, 6 weeks to break a bad habit? So, so by the middle of July, everybody will be using reusable bags in supermarket.
And I think that's an important point that you just made that I would like to highlight, that the supermarkets sell reusable bag. So you have the option to just, add that to your grocery bill and help to solve the plastic pollution, as you mentioned. Right.
Yeah, okay. and if you don't want to spend the $3, $5, $6, whatever it may cost, just walk with a bag from home. Yeah, you have, because you've been given a bag at some point that you can reuse.
So the supermarkets are on board. Are there any other private sector agencies that is supporting any activities that will be taking place?
Sure. We also have engaged with some local food vendors, and so of course, some local vendors have already started using the plastic alternatives. So in this engagement, they have also shared concerns about the cost, but some recognize that this is definitely the way to go, not only as it relates to pollution, but also to the effects that the plastic, specifically the styrofoam containers, have on their food. Because we know when styrofoam is heated, some of the chemicals are leaked into the food. So for this reason, some have said, you know, I don't want to be selling my food, my products, with this plastic being a contaminant. So they have moved in that, despite the cost, as opposed to the plastics, they have decided to move towards this, the alternative plastics.
Certainly, it's good to hear. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with more discussion on plastic solutions here in St. Kitts and Nevis. InFocus will be right back.
If you haven't done it as yet, please do it today. Subscribe to our YouTube page at SKNIS Media for regular updates, live coverage, and even more information on your government. While you're at it, like, share, and interact with our Facebook and Instagram pages at SKNIS Media and SKNIS Info.
Welcome back to InFocus. We continue our discussion with June Hughes and Visa Woods of the Department of Environment. So ladies, we spoke a bit about the fact of taking the lead, the partnerships that have been established in terms of some of the supermarkets, some of the private sector agencies that has agreed to reduce the use of plastic. Let's talk a bit about the leadership now that the government is doing in that regard. Of course, we are familiar with the St. Kitts and Nevis Parliament. They made a decision earlier this year that no plastic bottles and no plastic products will be used during the sitting, during Parliament. Speak to us about the importance of that.
Well, one of the whole goals of why we're here and what we're doing to promote this month and going forward is that Cabinet has agreed and taken decision to institute a ban on single-use plastics, and I will emphasize single-use plastics. And so the ban...
Give us some examples of such for persons who may not understand what that means.
So, styrofoam containers, a plastic fork, a plastic knife, a plastic spoon, plastic cups, plastic bags, those type of things. More will be added as time goes along, but those I think essentially what we will be focusing on in our first go at this. Now, so Cabinet, the ban, it's going to be a ban, and it's a ban that will be in 3 stages. So the first stage will be, or the first phase would be styrofoam containers and plastic straws. Now there are lots of alternatives out there, and so when we decide upon the date, it will be first a ban on importation, and then you'll be given some time to use your stocks, and then there will be a ban on sale and I guess use in the general public. Then the next stage would be plastic cups, plastic utensils, which is forks, knives, spoons. And the final stage would be plastic bags.
Timeline?
Pardon, timing?
Timeline,
don't have
yes.
the timing yet, but we will start this year for the first ban.
Okay. And we know that in terms of the government, as we mentioned, they launched an initiative also of recycling plastic.
Yes.
Speak to us a bit about that, Ms. Woods.
Okay, so the St. Kitts and Nevis Solid Waste Management and Recycling Project, it kicked off in June of 2022, and it's a collaboration between the Taiwanese Technical Mission and the Ministry of Environment, with supported in partnership by the Solid Waste Management Corporation in St. Kitts and the Nevis Solid Waste Management Authority. Yes, in Nevis. So that project, like I said, it started off in June of 2022, and I have some data here. So between June 2022 and April 2023, between St. Kitts and Nevis, we've collected over 55,000 pounds of plastics. So that is a significant number. What we have tried to do to make it easy for persons to join in this initiative is we've set up drop-off points every week in St. Kitts and every other week in Nevis. So there are 2 drop-off points in St. Kitts and there are 3 drop-off points in Nevis. So in addition to that, what we have also done is we have placed recycling bins in the primary schools. So far we have done 13 primary schools in St. Kitts, and this also includes restaurants in Nevis and government agencies like government headquarters, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Sustainable Development has also received a recycling bin, and there are various other ministries who have joined this initiative, and the collection is done at these entities. The collection is done on a weekly basis. The next phase that we are going into is to have a stationary drop-off point. As it stands now, as I mentioned, persons go weekly to a specific drop-off point when the technicians are there to collect the garbage, weigh the garbage, and then transport it to the recycling site. However, we found that, you know, as more and more persons are becoming aware of this initiative, there is a need for a stationary site. So the site is going to be accessible 24 hours a day. Also, to encourage persons to recycle, we have implemented a points reward system. So when you bring 1 pound of plastic, that is equivalent to 1 point. And then you can exchange these points for an item of your choice. Then most of them are reusable items. They're reusable shopping bags. They're flasks to store your water in. They're cooler bags and these sort of things. So we have been getting good feedback. We have been seeing more and more persons because persons' names are recorded as they drop off. So the numbers are increasing monthly. So we are very happy for this, and we realize that the message is being sent out, and then persons are becoming aware of this.
Can you give us a sense of how many persons are currently participating in this program?
I'm not entirely sure, but it's around the last count I saw. It was about maybe 300 between both islands, 300 persons. I'm not sure the current figures, but just to show how this project has grown over the past few months. In June, our first count was 600 pounds of plastics in June, and the last count being in April, we collected over 7,000 pounds. So you see the huge difference between 600 in the first month and 7,000 in the last month. So persons are definitely catching on, definitely being aware, and we have a lot more activities in the near future.
Talk to us about the relationship with the Solid Waste Management Corporation now. Is recycling taking place there? Because of course there are persons who just take their bottles and throw them in the garbage, unfortunately, so they throw them on the road sometime, and they have to be collected. Is recycling taking place at Solid Waste?
Not as yet. But solid waste on both St. Kitts and Nevis have been identified as a site for our waste recycling facilities. So both islands have balers, compactors so when the plastics come in, they're taken to a particular point, and the machine will compact them and put them in bales for shipment outside. But as of now, neither corporation is doing waste recycling at site.
And the importance of having these recycling bins in schools, because persons who say in order to promote change, you have to start with the younger generation.
Yes.
Talk to us a bit about that.
Well, you know, the young people are the ones who drive change as well. So once you get them on board, they go home and they get their parents or their siblings to come on board. And young minds are always open to new things. And whereas we will analyze, as adults, we will analyze something to death, once the young person, you give them, present something to them, they usually take it on board. So they are usually, that's what in our department, we usually go first to the young people, and hopefully that it moves up the chain. But if it doesn't move up the chain, you've changed one young person who will carry that habit on to life. And this plastic, moving away from single-use plastic requires behavior change, because we are accustomed to doing things a particular way, and we have to change and adopt a new way.
So private schools, or should I say primary schools, is there any involvement in terms of the private schools as well too?
Yes, but like I said, we sent out a survey as to the schools who would like to have this initiative implemented in the schools. So these were just the first set of schools that responded. So we are currently waiting on another shipment of bins, and then the other set would be furnished with the bins. Apart from these schools, we have also reached, Was University, the School of Veterinary Medicine, they also reached out to the project and heard about the initiative and said that they would love to be on board. So that was one of the institutions that a bin was placed in as well.
And that actually led me to the next questions in terms of any other private institutions that may be taking part or step forward to say that they have an interest in participating in this project.
Yes, we have several hotels also are a part of this initiative. On St. Kitts, Kittitian Hill, the Marriott Resort and Nevis, there were several hotels. There was the Montpelier Hotel, there was the Lime Beach Bar, several other entities in Nevis, the Four Seasons, of course. And so those are the private partners that we were able to reach. So a collection is done weekly as well to those persons.
Now, Ms. Hughes, of course, the Department of Environment, as you mentioned, 6 years ago, the theme was also addressing plastic pollution for World Environment Day. And the department has had quite a number of activities, quite a number of campaigns to encourage persons to do such. How does the department measure success? And we could use the 6-year span that you mentioned earlier. How is success measured? Usually,
in the response from the general public, we don't really have a quantitative measure that we do, but we look at how well the general public responds to our outreach, whether we see change in behavior. For instance, if I use the plastic campaign, the plastic bottles campaign, we started out with a very small number. This campaign, we've been able to measure the response. So if we use that as a thing, yes, we could see that it started out as a very small number and has graduated to and continues to get bigger on a daily basis.
Yes, even on an individual basis, you see persons taking the initiative. For instance, one of the smoothie vendors in town indicated that there are persons who would come and bring their own bottles or their own cups instead of using his plastic cups. So we see, even if it's just one, we see that there is a change on an individual basis for persons to move away from these plastics. So as Ms. Hughes mentioned, we don't have a quantitative, we don't have the data, but in engaging with the individuals on a daily basis, you hear them moving in the right direction to take a personal initiative to reduce the amount of plastics that they use.
And at the end of the day, any change has to start with one individual at a time.
Correct.
Of course, the department is also engaged in some projects to conserve and promote biodiversity, healthy biodiversity, and we're going to talk a bit more about that. But first, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with more in Focus.
If you haven't done it as yet, please do it today. Subscribe to our YouTube page at SKNIS Media for regular updates, live coverage, and even more information on your government. While you're at it, like, share, and interact with our Facebook and Instagram pages at SKNIS Media and SKNIS Info.
Welcome back to In Focus. We continue our discussion with June Hughes and Ms. Vicia Woods from the Department of Environment. Ms. Woods, the International Day for Biodiversity that was held on celebrated on May 22nd here. Tell us a bit about that day.
Okay, firstly, for those who are not familiar with the word, biodiversity refers to a variety of living things amongst us, whether it is plants, animals, microorganisms, and not only their being, but how they interact with each other. So annually, Biodiversity Day is celebrated on May 22nd, and the Department of the theme for this year was building back biodiversity. So what the Department of Environment did was engage in a tree planting activities throughout the island, throughout different schools in the island. A total of 14 schools and institutions. This included daycare centers, preschools, primary schools, and also the children's home. So we planted a various number of trees. The trees included the sugar apple tree, the soursop tree, the Suriname cherry, gooseberry, and monkey cherry. So you have a variety of trees that were planted. This was done in collaboration with the Department of Agriculture and Chipping Volunteer Center, and they so graciously provided us with these trees to help improve or protect the biodiversity throughout the island.
And when the trees are being chosen, was there a specific preference in terms of going for fruit trees, or just any old tree was chosen?
Yes, we specifically chose fruit trees.
Why is that?
Because we want to not only encourage biodiversity, but we also want to encourage planting food and planting fruits, because and this ties back to during the COVID-19 pandemic, when this was a major issue to plant foods, because we were afraid of scarcity of food and what's not. So we want to encourage this not only when something happens, not only when a pandemic is on, or we don't want to rely on outside food, but we want to encourage the planting of fruit trees and encourage persons to take care of the fruit trees to protect the biodiversity.
Ms. Hughes, of course, trees are very important in terms of ensuring combating climate change. And explain to us a bit about that. I was going to speak a bit about the oxygen production as well, but I'll leave that up to you.
Yes, but very basic biology, I think it is. Trees absorb carbon dioxide and emit oxygen. So every time we plant a tree, we are we're removing some of the carbon out of the atmosphere, and we're improving the lives of our people. So trees are just on that very basic level, very important to the environment.
And also very important because, of course, the scientists are predicting that the Earth continues to warm, which would lead to climate action.
Yes. Yes. As you know, human beings have not been very good for the Earth, especially since when we got industrialized. We started using fossil fuels, and the burning of fossil fuels have put extra carbon into the atmosphere, which the Earth cannot handle anymore. And so that has led to the earth getting warmer and warmer. And by being warmer, we've thrown off a lot of our systems. So even our rainfall patterns have changed. The way our trees fruit have changed. So whereas mangoes were primarily in the summer holidays, you now have mangoes in March, April. So our natural systems have been affected by this warming earth. And we have to do something to right it before we get to what they call a tipping point.
And scientists warn that, of course, a dangerous impact of that is the more intense hurricanes, and hurricane season is about to start here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
So, absolutely. The warming atmosphere causes the ocean waters to warm. And warm waters provide the fuel for tropical storms. And so when you have the vast ocean like the Atlantic Ocean, it's warm. Anything that's coming off of Africa spins up rapidly into a hurricane, and we are right in the pathway of it. And it's never good. We would love to get rain, yes, but we don't want to get the high winds as well. So we are facing more and more intense storms and more Category 5 storms each year. And so we have to pull brakes pretty fast if we are going to make a change.
Added to what Ms. Hughes said, yes, we need to make a change because climate change is upon us, and protecting our biodiversity can help to alleviate the impacts of climate change. So going back to the planting of the fruit trees, that is why we chose that this would be a great initiative to help build back biodiversity. So we hope that we can entrust the care of these trees to the students. Each school was supplied with at least two trees. Some got three, depending on the size and the space available at the schools. So we're hoping that this is just one small initiative to help combat climate change and help reduce the carbon footprint.
So that would be in relation to the trees. What about any animals or insects or anything along those lines? Is there anything that we would have seen there that is a concern for the department?
Well, we haven't really done, we've done some studies over the years. We did an inventory, I think it was completed in 2018, of our forested areas. But it was a small inventory. From that inventory, we were able to discover 2 native species of beetles. One was on Nevis, one was on St. Kitts. But to particularly say that there is, that any particular species is endangered at the moment, no. Some may be stressed, but we have not identified any that is endangered at the moment. But we don't want to reach the point where it's endangered before we protect it, before we not do, or before we do harm to it. So we are always encouraging. That's why we have protected all the lands above the 1,000-foot contour as a protected area to protect our biodiversity. Everything is interlinked. So once we ensure that our trees stay healthy, our plants and animals stay healthy, we get more water from our watersheds. So everything has a link. We can't, man can't destroy everything because we will be destroying ourselves in the long run.
And I know, of course, that as you speak about the protected areas, that the international community has really commended St. Kitts and Nevis for that initiative.
Thank you. We hope to make it bigger and better and to use this site as sustainably as possible.
And we certainly would like to continue our discussion, but we are out of time. It is, yes. So we'd like to thank you very much for appearing with us today, and we hope to see you back again sometime.
Thank you for having us.
And we want to thank you for joining us for this edition of InFocus. We would like to encourage you to join us next week at the same place, at the same time. I'm Ian Richards.
Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the SKNIS Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.